Hello and welcome to Storytelling with Puck. Must we? We must. We will, as always, start with a story.
S is for smiling and screaming and sighing. T is for timeless and thematic and terrifying. O is for early and for and for oh. R is for reading and writing and arithmetic. Y is for yelling and yearning and yoke. T is for tasting and telling and tropes. E is for enthusiasm and excitement and ooh. L is for listen. I said L is for listen. I is for intelligence and irony and idols. N is for nearly and never and notes. G is for greetings and gatherings and good jokes. You know that letters and words aren't much on their own. Their life comes from the patterns and meanings we bestow. Storytelling isn't jumbles and fumbles and rumbles. Storytelling is connection and making sense of our fumbles. Hello. Welcome. This is the last of our Storytelling with Puck Zoom evenings. So thank you for coming, and thank you to anyone who is watching live on YouTube. We really appreciate your support. And we really love all the stories you have shared throughout the week. It has been exceptional. I can't state how much your imaginations have blown our minds. So thank you very much.
Yes. And feel free to unmute yourselves and have a chat.
Megan, I think this is the first time we've met. How are you?
I am well, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So sorry that I'm only joining during this session, but I wanted to make sure that I at least get here this evening and chat to a few of you. So welcome, welcome to my place in Cape Town, South Africa.
And thank you very much. It's a warm welcome.
Yeah.
And also, no apologies. We know that people have been popping in and out. We've had a few sessions that have been busier, a few sessions that have been quieter, and different days that have been busier with the storytelling and quieter as well. It's a whole 8 days of it, and people have work and other things to do. So no need to apologise at all. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And Sharon, it's great to see you as well. How are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me here. And I want to say to Megan, I almost did not realize she was live. That looks like a cover perfectly, right? It looks like a photo, like a background. So perfect, lovely.
Thank you.
Perfectly positioned in the video. I think it's,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely
Thanks,
love
Sharon.
it. Right. So before, oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to find out where Sharon is based.
Ah, yes. Sharon, did you hear?
No, I'm sorry. Can you
Sorry,
repeat?
where are you calling in from?
Oh, I'm from New York, Arvin, New York, in the US.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Quite the international audience today.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We've got an Irish, an English, an American, and a South African, and we're currently calling in from the Netherlands, Guyana actually,
Oh.
as well. So,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Nice.
Oh, wow. I must say, I like that intro poem. I was unable to read it because of time, and now you've recited it. So nice. I love it, how it just captures what storytelling and story writing is all about, and in a fun and playful way.
Thank you. I always find it weird to respond to compliments, but thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate it. Shall we, before we continue our chat, do what we love to do here and recite another story. This one is from the fabulous Tracy Tate. I know that she was watching a couple of the YouTubes, but she hasn't been able to join us on the Zooms. But she shared this story, I think on the first day actually, of Storytelling with Puck, and it's one that's well worth a listen. So Cyan is going to read that for us.
That's it. She's gone. I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, staring at my reflection in my full-length mirror. Big, full, fat tears ran down my cheeks, my face blotchy. I had no more joy. I was empty. And for the first time in my life, I could understand why women decided to... Dear God, no, I said to myself, and watched as I shook my head at myself in the mirror. This has stolen enough from me already. My love for life, my happiness, my energy. Now I was sobbing. There may even have been snot. Ugh, I know. That's how past caring I was. And then, from nowhere, the memory of forgetting to pick up my son from school shoulder barged its way to the front to get my attention. It still breaks my heart to this day to think about it. I'm not sure exactly when the sun broke from behind the clouds, but it did. Slowly at first, and in time, it gradually shone more brightly and for longer. Just like winter turns to spring, There's certainly better days ahead. For me, my menopause was a thief. It took without giving a damn and left me grieving for who I was. But I was still there, inside, waiting to unfurl again.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thank you, Zan, for reading that so beautifully as well. What are your guys' thoughts on when you hear that story? I don't know if you had a chance to read it during the week as well. You're both on mute, by the way.
I did not read it before, but I would say that what drew my attention, I mean, the entire piece, but then the mention of menopause. Oh my goodness, that's a brave writer.
Indeed.
Yeah. So now I'm curious, and I'll go and read it some more so I can really dissect it and enjoy it.
Definitely a very emotional depiction of what she's been going through. So again, the mention of menopause catches your attention in the middle, because you're sort of sitting wondering what could it be, what could she be speaking of, and when that pops up, automatically your attention is drawn. So yes, definitely emotive.
Yeah. I like some of the imagery that some of the short phrases kind of caught your attention, the full fat tears and the memories shoulder barging their way in. It's quite
yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also as well, oh sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying very expressive, definitely.
That's sure. And it's also, so the menopause, I think, is something that it's becoming talked about more, but not enough. And for both women and for men, I think for men, it seems like, that thing that happens to women that nobody like doesn't exist to us almost to a degree. And then I think even for a lot of women, it's kind of at least as far as I've been told, it creeps up on you because it's not explained to you. It's you don't get the education at school and all of that to support you through it. And again, I've not experienced it, obviously, so I'm only going on what other people tell me. But sometimes I think that post is really important because I think it's missed in society a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And even as a woman myself, many of us have not experienced it, or at least in that way, or even know that we're experiencing it. And then for young girls, it's enlightening. So pieces like those that are honest and playful, those are needed.
I agree with that as well. And I think these days people are talking about it a little more, but the circles are still very small. People are becoming a little more talkative about it and about other things as well. But I think it's still at that space, like you said, Stefano, where it needs to be really opened up. And especially, I think, hats off to the men that have been going through it via a partner, mother, whatever the case might be, because yes, it affects everybody and often badly. So it needs to come to the table, definitely.
I think it definitely shows the importance of the poet, the writer, whomever, because you can take something that's very ravishing or gentle or whatever way, political or what, and you turn it into art, and it draws people's attention because while you're enjoying the piece, you're really either relating to it or learning about it. So the poets and the writer and were needed.
Definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That is the power of storytelling, I think, and it's another example of how storytelling works so well. I think maybe if you went into a room full of lads and brought up menopause and just said, let's sit down and talk about it, you probably would get quite a few people saying, "Oh, I'm busy." That's the polite, that's the polite version. But I think maybe if you went in there and you read that story,
Yes,
some people would still be like, "Oh, why are you reading that?" But some might go, "Oh, that's what it means. Okay, I kind of want to find out more." So it's a way to grab attention, which I think just shouting facts at people or almost forcing people to discuss something maybe doesn't work quite as well. So, on that note, let's have more stories. Megan, I know this is your first time at a Zoom, so you maybe haven't experienced what we do at the Zooms, which is often we ask everyone to share stories if they would like to, but there is absolutely no pressure to if you don't want to. So if you have a story you would like to tell or share, and it doesn't have to be right now, but throughout the night, please feel free and share. I will keep on opening it up to you, and Sharon, you know how this works as well, so you know. That whenever you're ready, please jump in and share a story or a poem or whatever it is you feel like putting out there.
I will do so. Thank you.
I hope Megan has a piece because I'm curious to enjoy her writing.
Well, Megan is one of those people that will have to do it by the seat of her pants, because Megan does a bit of everything. I'm a copywriter and a content creator, a freelancer. That is what I do every day, and so I'm constantly talking stories and writing stories and so on. But I'm also very happy to announce that just this past week, and that's part of the reason I didn't make it to any of the sessions, I just launched my literacy program for youth in my area. And so there's lots happening in that space, and I'm excited. And I suppose my story will go about that at this point in time, because that's probably the big passion point right now. And it's also just where I'm coming from in respect of having started it. So I think that would be the big story of the day for me, essentially.
Amazing. That's firstly so cool that you've launched that. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about it and to see kind of what got you there, how you got to this moment where you are now, where it's been launched, and kind of what the plan is for the future. And I'm guessing that's all going to encompass your story. So yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. Would you like a bit of time to prepare while we read another story and to think about it, or would you like to launch?
Well, let's just go for it and let's launch. I'll give you some insight, and it's one of those that, like I said, it's very impromptu. So if you want to stop me, ask any questions, please do. But essentially, what's very cool about the way I grew up with, I had parents that really believed in books and the power of knowledge and reading, etc. So my siblings and I were always brought up with books, around books, etc. And I often share the story with people that my dad used to give us homework, literacy homework, besides our schoolwork. So every day he would give us a chapter out of a book that he's reading or someone's reading, and we literally had to go through it and find words that we don't understand, look them up, find their meaning, write sentences about it. And when he got home, he would sit with us, actually go through the chapter with us and, pick it apart with us, etc. And I've never lost that. And it's one of those huge memories from my childhood where I just feel like my dad is absolutely, he never made it past primary school because that was the age they were living in. Teenagers went to work for the family and so on. But he's one of the most knowledgeable and intelligent people that I know. And my dad is still around. He's 76 years old, but he still gets up at 3 a.m. with a cup of tea, does his crossword puzzles, and that's just his lifestyle. So that's what I grew up with. And so for me, reading has always been a very big part of my life. Always loved the language. My mom was learning. At the time when I was in primary school, she was actually finishing her teaching degree. She never got to teach, but she was studying at the time, and we needed to mind our P's and Q's because she was majoring in English. So it was one of those households. And so we also didn't have the most calm and quiet and relaxed household. We did have quite a few issues within the household. So for me, it was also an escape. And Nancy Drew and Dr. Seuss and all those people, the Hardy Boys, I got lost in that because, if you need an escape, what better way to get on that magic carpet and just disappear? And that's basically what it was for me. And so where my literacy program comes into play today is the fact that I don't feel that our education systems, and this is global, is doing justice to literacy. South Africa, certainly not. And a lot of our kids are growing up with English as a first language, and they're just not even getting the basics. They're not getting the joy of reading. They're not getting the escape of reading. They're not getting the fun of the language. And just going to insert there that a big part of what I do, I write for the technical industry because I've got a heavy duty tech background, but I also write creative writing and I love wordplay and puns. So that part of English and language and just playing around with it is what I want to carry across to these kids, because I'm now dabbling in songwriting. I write tech, I write creative stories for coaches, I write blogs. So the versatility of what that gives me is what I want to be able to carry across to these kids. But I insist that it's fun, because the reason I opened my business for myself is so I can follow my passions and carry it across to them. So that's where I'm coming from. So I can't wait. It's taken me about a year to get things together and moving, because at the same time I was trying to get my business up and running. But what I've started with now is I've just launched a tuition program for youth. And so we will have reading circles, and I'm focusing on English as one of the key aspects of learning. So it will be discussion groups with set workbooks in different grades, etc. I just want kids, I said to the parents, even if your child comes to me with a comic book and they read their comic for that hour and we discuss it and they comprehend what's going on in that piece, that works for me. It's a start. And essentially that's where I'm coming from. I just want kids to have the experience of what language can do for them in their space and literacy can do for them in their space. And I know it will catch on. I know this. You get the right story linked up with the right kid, they are sorted. So I'm a firm believer that without literacy and without being able to articulate yourself clearly, our kids have very little chance of success, because you can be the best sound engineer or engineer that you want. If you can't read your next work contract, what good is that going to do for you? So I want to help get that foundation there, and I want to help strengthen that. But I also want them to know how much fun the language can be. So that's pretty much it.
Firstly, well done. Absolutely amazing. Such a fantastic, important initiative. It's a few of the things that you said there really stood out. One of them may not be what you expect me to say here, but the aspect of fun. I feel like getting into what kids care about and what they don't force them to start by reading Shakespeare. Yeah, it's not going to work. You're not. Maybe some kids, maybe for some kids it might be Shakespeare, but for most kids, get them into the things that they care about. If they're sporty, maybe get them magazines about football. If they like superheroes and superheroes on the screen, go, hey, look, do you know where this originally came from? Let's have a look at the comics, as you said earlier. And you know, all of that I think is then what gets the passion for reading going. And whether or not they are then reading 100% correctly at the beginning doesn't matter. It's not the most important part of it. What matters is that they have a grasp and an understanding and a love for it. And once that's in place, all of the rest will come. And so I love what you're doing. It's I can't state how much I love what you're doing. Well done. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
And also 1 year to put something like this together is like a blink of an eye whilst you're doing your full-time job.
Crazy.
So like just
It's
unbelievable. And I really like the kind of what you were saying, the connecting the right kid with the right story, because that's what it's all about.
Imperative, you know. I've got one story where I used to love Archie comics, and I used to read them all the time. So my dad used to have these really thick novels or really scientific books and journals, and you know, a bit of everything, astrology, you name it, it was there. And then I would sneak an Archie comic into the book and start reading my comic in between and whatever. And my dad was big on general knowledge, and so he would, you know, just throw an odd question at us during the conversation. And one day he asked me about a war. Can't remember all the detail. And I gave him the date like that. And he went, oh, somebody's been doing her homework. I said, no, somebody's been reading an Archie comic. That's what was mentioned in the article. So my battle was won. That was me winning one for Archie. And yeah, the rest is history. So I will never discourage a kid from reading anything. And I was at some point the laughing stock in my physics and science class because the teacher was presenting something to us and it was chemicals and we were chatting and I gave her the name of something and everybody saw me looked at me like, how in heaven's name did you know that? So I'm one of those people that will sit with the bottle of the cleaning agent and have a look through all the ingredients and start sort of memorizing what goes with what and how things are pronounced. And that's the kind of curiosity that my parents instilled in us with respect to reading. And so everybody was like, how did you know that? And I'm like, yeah, no, I read that on one of the cleaning agent bottles. So it doesn't matter where it comes from. It adds value and knowledge. And so I will take an ordinary magazine and give it to a kid to read. As long as they're reading, I'm good.
Mhm.
Exactly. There's no point
So-
reading all the books that everyone else read. Then you just know the same stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even better if you get to read it yourself as well. Even better. That's where we want to get them to.
So it sounds instructional, it sounds autobiographical, even maybe memoirish. So I'm thinking this is a great book you've got in you with all these stories, and I am sure eventually you've got to put it out there.
It has come up, Sharon, I must admit, and it's one of those. I'm a total adventurer as well. So I spent about 10 years working at sea doing marine research. And I mean, you can just imagine the stories that come from that. So I think I'm going to have to put out a volume of 12 eventually when I get around to it, because there's going to be a lot of angles to come from. So yes, it will happen. But at the moment, I'm having too much fun with everything else to even sit down and think about it. But I'm sure it will come.
Comes back to the word fun. I love it, Megan. It always comes back to the word fun. One thing that stood out to me, you mentioned curiosity there, and I think that's such a key to enabling learning, to encouraging people to learn. Something that I guess is a question for how you're going to approach the literacy course, the literacy initiative for these kids, is for the kids who maybe don't seem quite as curious. Most kids are curious, but maybe are a little bit shy, a little bit timid, not wanting to come forward and be quite as curious. Do you have kind of ideas of how you can make them become a little bit more curious, to kind of spark their curiosity a little bit more?
Absolutely. I have my first port of call is always just connecting with the kid, just finding out what it is that drives them, because there is a point of curiosity somewhere. It's up to us to actually find that, because like you said, it's innate. People are curious, kids are curious in particular. It's just that they probably haven't been exposed to something that sparks that for them. And I'm one of those people, I will try anything once. So coming from that angle, I think it's a really good approach, because that's where you start discovering and connecting with people on a completely different level. So that would be definitely my first point of call, is actually just connecting with the child and finding out where they're coming from, what the experience has been up to the point where I've met with them and we're in that situation. But also, I mentioned earlier, I myself now am dabbling in songwriting. I love music, I always have.
Oh,
And so for me, part of my content writing extends to broadcast and radio, it extends to so many different areas. Why? Because there's always something that catches your attention. It doesn't matter how old you are. And it's about finding that and introducing literacy to them through that funnel. That's where I am. And one of my business values, Stefano, you said it, one of my values is fun and passion. And that's completely where I come from. With anything I do, I try and do it with energy, and I love working with kids. Having worked with marine research, where we did a lot of work with young kids, taking them through some of the processes we do and stuff. And the minute you catch their attention with something, that's the place to stick with them. So that's definitely one of the first things. And then also just getting them outdoors. You know, our kids today don't even spend an hour outdoors. They come from school, they perhaps do their homework, and they sit playing the Xbox, watch TV, they on their phones. My point of call, get them outdoors, just let them find something that actually doesn't feature in their day-to-day life. And somebody's going to ask a question. So that would definitely be part of my arsenal when it comes to getting them incited into that space. Definitely just give them a different experience to what they're used to. And I'm convinced it will come.
Incredible. Well, you've got us curious, that's for sure. So, I'm certain you won't have too much trouble getting the kids curious as well. It's an amazing initiative. I know I've said it already, but yeah, brilliant. Well done. Viv, welcome. Hello.
I think
I think I've missed out on something interesting. I'll go back and listen afterwards.
you have. I won't lie. You have missed out on something interesting, but as you say, that's why we record it. So you can have a chance to step in again. But welcome and thank you for coming to the final episode of Storytelling with Buck for this initiative.
Time.
Yes, but we'll be back. We'll be back again. Now I won't put the pressure straight on you because that's a bit unfair because you just come. So instead, Sharon, here's all the pressure on you. But obviously, you don't have to. But would you like to read a story or a poem or something like that for us to indulge in?
Oh, sure. And my stuff is not as serious as Megan's. I'm playful and silly. And I must mention that I was so elated when you mentioned that you're writing music, because music is poetry. So keep on writing.
Thank you.
Fine. Yeah. So yeah, I could share two very short poems. And the first one, the title is Donnie's Life Brought Sweet Lullabies. And it was written for a friend that lost a loved one as a tribute. And I'm tweaking in it and personalizing it so I could use it for my book. And so the general public could relate with it. So here goes a draft. Danny's life brought sweet lullabies. Don't cry, my dears. Now dry your eyes. The Donny angels sing lullabies. God called him to walk by his side. He complied, wishing not to hide. Quick now, don't rouse him with sad cries. Heaven bound with poise, Danny lies. Days ago he had said goodbyes. Guardian angels now confide. Don't cry, my dears. Danny's life brought sweet lullabies. Siblings and kin, he blessed your lives. Moe and Flora were his pride. The kids and Mecca brought him smiles. Oh, calm now hovers where he lies. Don't cry, my dears. I must tell you, this is a rondo, so it's in one of the traditional forms. So I'm going to even tweak it further. So, and then I can read this other quickly. It's called They Will Soon Be No More. Just a free verse. Wake up, sleepyhead child. Dawn's face is fair. The birds are in chorus. Flowers powder earth with colors. Run to the brook and splash your face. Wake up, sleepyhead child. Frogs down by the pond leap and croak their praise. And crickets proclaim with flair, a new day has come your way. Windows, draw back your evening veils, let the sun invade, and sprinkle effervescent rays upon my sleepyhead's hair. Let the sunny reverently pry loose her lids and seductively caress her sleepy face. Untwine my sleepyhead from sleep's embrace. Wake up, sleepyhead, there's a picnic in the park, and a menacing drake chases a Siamese cat, and the Siamese eyes a cheeky brown rat, and the three are after the widow's blue cheese. Come, lazy body, climb out of bed. Let your feet sweep the cold wooden floor. Shed your night garments. Shed your procrastinating moments. They will soon be no more. That's it.
Brilliant.
nice.
Amazing. It's hard to know what to say sometimes when you've kind of just been hit by a poem or by two poems. There's it's powerful. And yeah, I think there's almost a link between the actual substance of the poem, but also the style and the flow of both of them. And we talked about this, I think, a few times in some of our conversations before, but sometimes you're drawn in by the voice and the patterns. And you said this earlier, Sharon, about I think it was one of the it was Tracy's story that Cyan read, where you're grabbed by it, you're grabbed by some of the key parts of it, but you want to go back and read and listen again to fully understand all of the meaning beneath it. And I kind of feel like that with some of the poems that you share, is that I'm grabbed by it, and some of the detail I'm getting, and some of the detail I think, right, I need to go back and listen to that. But the flow is keeping me there and helping me to kind of become part of the poem almost. And so yeah, it's powerful. It's really good. But anyway, that's enough of me. What does everyone else think?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Stefano. I kind of got hooked into the sound of your voice and the rhythm of it, and kind of looking at you thinking this is just a very beautiful experience, and at the same time another part of my brain going, I need to try and follow this. So yeah, it's very visceral, and the second one, the thing I really loved about it is the tone of, wake up, sleepyhead. It's so loving. There's so much love in that. It's beautiful. I'm completely with you, Stefano. I'd like to read it, but this order of hearing you say it and then reading it, because I still have your voice in my head, is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And the rhythm as well. I don't think inside my head I'd have captured quite as much of the rhythm just reading it from the page. Yeah. But they're both beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sharon, from my side, the tribute was absolutely comforting. I could relate to the descriptiveness of it, and all of us have been through some form of loss, and the love that comes into it flows into that piece. Absolutely relating to that. And I think it's also got in my opinion, it's that resonance that comes with age, the maturity of, at one stage in your life, you're actually fighting death and what comes with it. And at some point, there's that level of acceptance and making peace with whatever it's brought.
Yeah.
I think that brought that home for me, was the point that I think I'm in that space now. When it happens, you look at it differently. And that really spoke to that for me. And the wake up sleepyhead, I have to agree with just the tone of your voice coming through there and the rhythm. And that just made me feel completely nostalgic. That made me think of being woken up by mom. Just like, I loved sleep, and I hibernated through most of winters, although compared to you guys, South Africa doesn't have a really harsh winter, but I was hibernating half the winter times. I always needed to be taunted and pulled out of bed. So that was just pure nostalgia for me. Thank you.
I love the polite wake ups that you had.
Right?
I think you should record that little snippet, Sharon, and we could have it as an alarm.
Yeah.
Imagine being
Oh,
woken up by that. How nice would that be?
oh, great idea.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
was also going to, I was also going to add that these are the types, but just the way that you express these poems, that your rhythm again, those are typically the types that I would sit in the dark listening to. That's what I do with music and poems that I enjoy. I do it without any other disturbance in the dark, and just I'll replay it 10 or 12 times and just sit with it. And those are typically the ones that I would sit with. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Such a great way to listen. I think it's something I haven't done too long actually. But you switch off all other senses. Nothing else is absorbed. Just the and again, as you say, I think the repeating process. The reason often I think if we're listening to stories and poetry rather than reading it, that we repeat it is because of exactly what we were talking about just after you read your poem, Sharon. Is almost the first time round you're listening just to be absorbed by it, and then you're slowly gathering more and more and more and more from it. And I think you do, as you say, you did it with music as well. If I listen to an album for the first time, I get a sense of whether or not I kind of like the flow, I kind of like the sound, I kind of like the lyrics, even if I haven't got all of them. But then the second, third, fourth, fifth time, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Or actually, it's not as good as I thought, depending on which way it goes. I won't mention any names. Not on the
That's a
bad
lot-
side, I do.
That's a lot of deconstruction going on. And that's why I really enjoy literature and in classrooms and in discussions, right? And the whole thing is no one is wrong. You have an opinion and you deconstruct and extrapolate from whatever's presented, and you can honestly give your opinion. So you have a right to not like something or to like it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I like yours already, so that
Thank God.
I just want to make that clear.
I feel better now.
Well, as I think we've all gestured to, it was absolutely wonderful, and I think it's inspiring for maybe another story to join the fray. Viv, I don't know if you're ready and willing, or if you would like to read the story at all.
Yeah, no, I am willing. Whether I'm ready or not is arguable. Disclaimer before I even utter a word. I just wrote this morning because I thought I need to bring something new. So there's lots of tweaky stuff to go on. And I might.
That's perfect. That's why we're all here, to inspire you to write in the morning instead of going to your emails. So
Scrolling through Instagram,
perfect example.
looking at babies.
Okay.
If that's what you do, then yeah.
Hey, apparently you YouTube rap videos, so
Oh, that's fair.
your poems.
Okay.
This
Viv, over to you.
is going to seem quite hefty compared to Sharon's, but anyway. The morning is dark and gloomy. The start of one of those winter days when it feels like there will never be any light or sunshine again. A slight fog adds to the foreboding. Lucy locks her front door, dropping her key into her bag. She fastens the buckles of her bag and begins to make her way down the street, then turns right to start the descent down the hill towards the railway station. The wind whips round the corner as she turns, her shoulders round and her head lowers to her chest. She closes herself in as she protects her body from the weather. She is heading into Manchester, a meeting with a potential client. She feels ill-prepared and uncertain. The road crosses the canal, which is eerie in its stillness. The houses lining the road shine out squares and rectangles of light as other people begin their days. Lucy takes some small comfort in the feeling of being part of a shared experience and routine. On the right are grand red brick semi-detached houses with lawns and fancy paved driveways. On the left, lines of small stone terrace huddling together, only the pavement which is liberally spattered with wheelie bins separating them from the road. A man leans against his doorway. His slippers have seen better days. Cigarette smoke plumes upwards. He nods to Lucy as she crosses over the road towards him. Lorries rumble up the hill, heading to the quarries in the Peak District, grumbling loudly as they climb. She reaches the main road. Lucy stands by the pedestrian crossing, looks at the red man glowing in the dimness, sees the streams of headlights and tail lights whizzing past. Cars accelerate hard when the lights change, released at full tilt out of their traps. More lorries trundle by. Lucy looks right. The road looks clear. She steps out. Bang! She is suddenly alert. She jumps back onto the pavement as another stream of traffic flies past. Just like that, she thinks. I could step out and it would all be done. The relief of a certain ending. A step into the black abyss whose edge she frequently hovers over. But that was then. This is now. Lucy locks her front door, drops her key into her coat pocket and steps out. She passes the coffee shop. Dan smiles from behind the soft pink counter. He and Lucy wave madly to each other, blowing kisses through the slightly misted window. Then the bakery. Lucy anticipates her pastry choice for the homeward journey. What will go best with her oat milk cappuccino? She beams at Lynn and Sarah as they wave to her. Further down the hill, the man has assumed his morning smoking position. Morning, he says. Good morning, says Lucy as she smiles back at him. She continues down the haphazardly flagged pavement. Her steps are light and confident, shoulders back, head held high. As she walks, she thinks about the week ahead, runs through all the exciting plots and plans, thinking what needs to be done and what can wait. Her mind seems to run in overdrive as she takes this walk each day. She reaches the pedestrian crossing. She has memorised the traffic light sequence. Traffic can appear from under the bridge opposite her, 2 streams from her right or 1 from behind. Under the bridge and past the railway station, she trips on towards the yoga studio. She presses the intercom, which trills cheerfully. The door clunks open and she's here again. The musky smell of incense guides her up the stairs. Morning, she beams. Coats are removed and hung up next to brightly coloured scarves and hats, kicked off shoes together in messy lines. The how are yous and good mornings surround her, then conversations burble and bounce along. Lucy collects her mat from its special spot. She keeps it at the studio. At first to save carrying it back and forth, but then it just felt right to leave something of herself here, ready for the next visit. And that's it so far.
Wow. It's incredible. I was in 2 different worlds there. And I could picture them both so clearly. Interestingly, the first world, slightly worryingly, the physical version of it, I could picture quite close to our home. So the wheelie bins outside some of the terrace houses and the main road where you can't cross when it's busy because it's too busy and flows of traffic, etc. And almost a rat race of life description that you're giving. And even though the 2 worlds are of one person, it's like 2 different people. The difference in mentality from Lucy, it's almost like watching a kind of maybe a bit of a dark musical, but where it goes from the almost a silent movie idea of, you know, the challenges that someone's having through the day, and then suddenly everything's in full color, and you can see the color of the cake, and you can see the smile on their face of the friends, and the hearts almost blow up like a cartoon. Like I can picture all of that as you're reading, and we get to your yoga studio, which we had a description of the other day.
What more can I say?
There's
The
a
links are
theme. There's
incredible.
a theme.
There is a theme. There is a
Yeah,
theme.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm going on again, and I should have just said I was absorbed and it was amazing. So thank you.
I've got to speak. I've got to speak. The yoga studio, totally. My composure, I lost it because I'm like, oh my goodness, there's part 2 to the first piece that you read, or who knows what else you have hidden in the background. But this is great, like development here. And so before you got to the yoga studio, I had been writing. Oh my goodness, I can't even speak. I had, and I don't want to be incorrect with Megan here. You might recruit me for your program. But I had been jotting down notes, and I have we have all encountered those uncertain, gloomy days, whether literally or metaphorically, when you started, right? And then I have I love how you just employ all the 5 senses when you write in all your pieces. You know, we can smell, we can see, we can just become a part of what it is you're sharing. And the visuals, imagery, excellent writer. And I did not even miss dialogue, because your writing was so rich, and I love dialogues in story, or whether it be fictional or nonfiction. I love to hear people speak, but I did not really miss it. And I just love the flow. And, you know, it made me think of pretty much like a small town or maybe a village. And I'm just the hills, and I'm just envisioning you know, the characters within the story. And then you had the nerve to go mention the yoga studio, and I'm like, oh yes, I'm so happy. So keep writing. You're working on this. This is another chapter in there, so keep writing. Excellent. And then so I can shut my mouth. The audacity of you to mention your genius that you only wrote this morning. Come on, Liv. Brilliant work.
There was some. Thank you, Sharon. That's all wonderful, and I do feel quite emotional about all of this. I just thought, I read some of my stuff that I'd written before, and I thought, oh, I can just read this out again. But I desperately wanted to connect back to the yoga one. I don't know why, but just because I felt validated by the response to it, and I just thought, right, keep going on that theme. So
there's something as well with the love that you clearly have for yoga, and I know we've been speaking about it for a while since you mentioned it and you posted about it on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and I also get the sense of the love you have for writing, and I think to be able to join those two things together, it kind of circles back to some of the stuff that we've all been talking about earlier, when Sharon talks about her poetry, and when Megan talks about the music and the educational side, and then you with the yoga, and then I talk about lots of nonsense, but that's not important. But there's all of this connecting of all of our different worlds that come together. I think you find this important. It's yeah. Anyway, I'm still speaking.
Could I just add in there's these like 3 things that just jump out at me after hearing your story. The one is hope. I love that turnaround that you just did. You know, I was so absorbed in the dreariness of the story and the realities of what this person is going through. And when you did that switch, all my lights went on. Just went, right, this is my kind of story. I'm a sucker for a happy ending. And yeah, that got me. So that I love that quick switch that you pulled on us. Loved it. I also almost want to go, just hang in there. That's what it's all about. It gets better. That's what I walked away with. It gets better no matter what you're thinking, feeling, and experiencing in that moment. It gets better. And almost want to throw in there, you've got a lot to do with it yourself. You can swing it around. So that's the feel. So all around hope jumping out at me, but also I love, again, the way you express everything. And I almost, being a writer myself, I almost want to say you didn't need words for your story. It was just the story. It wasn't individual words. It was just that whole feel and the ambience. What you put across it's like, we don't need words to express this. It was just there. It was the story, and it's everything that came with it. So I absolutely love that. Thank you very much. And walked away with that just going, I love the fact that you could just, you had me so well hooked that when you did the switch on me, I got left behind for 10 seconds and had to catch up with you. So love it.
Thank you so much.
There's the old, and it's a little bit cliche, but idea of a picture paints 1,000 words. But I feel like your stories paint 1,000 pictures. I'm constantly just picturing something else, picturing the scene, picturing the emotion, picturing the metaphors, picturing. It's just pictures. I'm just picture after picture after picture after picture. I feel like I'm there. It's just it's special.
But there's a moral in all of this for Viv. Do I dare say? Write that book. That's the moral of the story.
Well, I have
You're
to
never
say,
getting away with not doing this, Viv, yeah?
no, I know, but I feel more driven to do it. I think what I was doing before, sorry to be self-indulgent and hog the conversation.
I
What
apologise.
I was writing before was kind of a cathartic, trying to work through a load of shit that had happened to me. Whereas this feels hope. So why would you want to add more dreariness into the world? Basically, I like what you said, Megan, that it's hopeful, and that's what I want to be. I want to be hopeful and encourage people to open up and let it in.
Absolutely.
So it feels like now.
Absolutely, Viv. And I don't think if they're not relating to the dreariness, then they're not going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's what the beauty of that piece is about. It's the fact that they can relate. Everyone will be able to relate to it on some level. And I think they will have that same reaction or similar reaction to what I had. It's just, just the dreariness and then the big smile that came with that switch. So loved it. I think it's what we need, but in order to make people really relate to what you're doing, you have to share something that they've been through or something they've experienced. It has to start there. And that's the only way you catch them in your net and drag them along. That's the way to do it.
And no one is one-dimensional. I mean, we cry, we laugh, broken hearts. We may not mention it to anyone, but we all have those experiences, and readers relate when you can write about things that have affected them or that they're currently going through. And then there's the hope, like Megan mentioned. But I have one last question, and I promise I will be quiet.
Don't have to promise to be quiet.
That story.
We need people to speak. That's the idea.
And I will have to be gone. So, but listen, that story someone posted, and I believe it's Viv, about with the elevator. Was that you, Viv?
There's been a few stories about elevators.
A few elevators.
Viv definitely posted one.
There was one, I think, yesterday with the little boy, Max. Was his name Max?
This is the one
And
where we all wrote about the same characters. So if you say something specific about characters.
There was one in particular that was posted on LinkedIn, and the little boy's name was, I think, Max and maybe Gita. Gita, I think. Yeah.
So I think so. Just again, so people are aware. What we did is on Wednesday, we had a workshop where we got I think there were 6 of us all together, 7 of us all together, and we wrote. I gave a task to the people within the workshop to write stories, and I gave them 4 characters, and the characters, all they had was a name, which is why there's more than one story with these names. So there was Max, there was Alessandra, there was Jim, and there was Sangeeta, and they were. Sangeeta, and they were all stuck in a lift, and the alarm bell had just gone off, and that's all the information we gave. And we gave all of the people in the workshop 45 minutes to write a story with that information. They must include all of the information, but everything else was up to their imagination. And so that's why it's a bit hard to put a pin on who you're talking about, Sharon, because we've had I think 4 or 5 people post stories based around that in the last few days. But you can still tell us more about it, and hopefully it's given some insight into something.
I'll do my homework and try to track who the author was. I was just about if Viv had written, I don't know if she was part of that. I thought perhaps it may have been hers. And then I wanted to say it reinforces the fact that you are a great writer, because again, a lot of imagery, the dialogue between Max and Sangeeta, if I got the name right. And it made me think that that's just a chapter that feels like a novel. And because the little boy exits the elevator and runs to his parent, and then that seems like a chapter within that novel. So it's something that could continue. So I just wanted to say that, but I thought it was a lovely write. Yeah.
It could have been anybody's, couldn't it, Stefano?
Yeah. I will check.
They were all brilliant, and you know, it could have been anybody's. I've got.
They were all brilliant. I have to agree. Sorry, go on.
The most recent one, I think, was Julia's, wasn't it? That I saw.
Julia's was the most recent one. I think it was called Stuck, and we also had one actually, and this one might be one that some of you haven't heard, even the people who were in the workshop, because a lady called Sarah Ifidon couldn't. I have no idea if I've pronounced that correctly, so Sarah, I apologize if I've pronounced your last name incorrectly. But it was she wasn't able to make the workshop, unfortunately. But she asked if she could still take part in the activity anyway. So I gave her the details of the activity over a message the other day, and she also came up with a story. I don't know if you would like to read that, baby Sam. Would that be okay? And so you can all hear a version of the lift. This particular version is called Stuck.
Time was ticking, and Sangeeta could see it as she stared at the little boy's wristwatch. Her hearing was almost gone, so she could only rely on her eyes. Her eyes, green and intense, glanced at 3 strangers in the elevator. There was a young man who looked about 45. He was leaning against the wall with his buff arms crossed. He looked like a security agent in his blue shirt and black pants. For some reason, he looked angry, and all she could think was that he needed some love in his life. He rubbed his white beard and looked at the younger lady with an air of irritation. His blue eyes shifted towards her, and Sangeeta's heart almost dropped. She felt like a peeping Tom and turned around, trying the elevator bell again. She was almost the same height with it anyway. Being short had its perks. Why isn't it working, ma'am? The little boy with spiked hair and a fake moustache asked. His green eyes suddenly bulged and his chest expanded with rapid breaths. Are you okay, darling? She asked. The little boy nodded, but didn't look okay. Sangeeta turned around and saw the younger tall lady with long blonde hair and brown eyes breathing heavily. She could sense she wasn't used to being trapped in an elevator. Neither was she, but something was thrilling about this, and she couldn't help but hide a smile. She had prayed for something exciting after she clutched the letter from the hospital earlier that day. How could she die without doing anything with her life? It was one thing to lose your hearing, and another to drop out of existence because of an incurable ailment. The elevator had suddenly stopped working. In all the movies she had watched, this was either going to turn out like a horror film or an action movie. Sangeeta could not help but hope her story ended up being a comedy. She chuckled loudly this time. and the young lady, who looked about 21 years, stared at her with a puzzled expression. You think this is funny? We're about to die, she screamed. Sangeeta squinted at her. She knew this lady. She had seen her at the hospital several times, and there were signs on her wrist that were a tell-all. She caught her staring and rolled down her sleeves immediately. What are you staring at, freak? She mumbled and turned her back to Sangeeta. You're Alessandra, right? Alessandra was stunned. She turned around and gawked at her. How do you know my name? I knew it. My daughter loved watching you sing during that talent show. You have a lovely voice, darling. Alessandra frowned. My agent doesn't think so. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks, Sangeeta says with a sweet smile, and Alessandra smiled back. Get out of my way, the man yelled and brushed past all of them toward the door. Alessandra and Sangeeta move out of his way, baffled by his intense reacting. I'm sure help is on the way, darling. With all due respect, old lady, I am not your darling. He starts banging on the elevator door, and I will not allow another person to die under my watch. That made them freeze. How do you know I'm dying? How do you know I was going to kill myself? The ladies responded simultaneously. This made him halt in his stride. The watch was ticking in the silence. Suddenly, they could also hear the sound of someone wheezing. The ladies turned around and saw the little boy looking like a rag doll on the floor. Just when they opened their lips to respond, the elevator door opened. A security man was standing at the open door wearing a blue shirt and black pants. Jim, sorry about that. I forgot to place the out of order sign outside that he gets struck in the face. Call the effing ambulance, Jim says as he rubs his bruised knuckles. He turns around and lifts the little boy from the floor. And don't fucking bring your sick kid to work again. The boy wraps his arms around Jim as he carries him away. The ladies are left behind staring at the man lying on the floor, nursing his bruised chin. Sangeeta sighed. So much for an adventure.
Sarah, thank you. That was brilliant.
Quite the whirlwind in 3 minutes.
And again, it's incredible. So Sharon, you had one version. You read one version of the story, but it's incredible how all of the stories that have been written based on those prompts were completely different sets of characters, completely different ideas of how those characters could be perceived, the relationships between them, whether or not they were, there was a mother and son, or the older people were mother and son, or whether or not the little kid had some kind of relationship to any of them or was a complete stranger. Or in the version that Alison did, and we won't go into too many detail on this, but something that was completely out there and felt like it had nothing to do with a lift for about 3/4 of the story. There's all of these brilliant versions that came across. And I think there's just something special about them that I think shows the power of our imaginations. And sometimes I think people don't believe they can write creatively. They say we don't have any ideas, we don't have anywhere to go. But if you add some kind of parameters and often a time limit and say go, people work and they write and they come back with something and they realize actually just how good they are. And Viv, you were one of those people on Wednesday. It was amazing.
Those characters are permanently etched in my brain, but like as a mush of all the different versions of them. Really, even the bloody elevator, it wasn't in the same place in everybody's story, was it?
Although a few of them were in hospitals, or the people in the lift had been a doctor, so that was the only thing that we didn't say that a few people put in there for dramatic license, I think.
Yeah.
Great read. Totally two different versions. All I think I enjoyed both of them. But listen, friends, this was awesome, and I must leave now. So thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again next year.
Sharon, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. Sorry, Viv, you were going to say.
No, just lovely to see Sharon. I love her whole vibe. It's so positive and encouraging. It's lovely.
And thank
Thank
you for the
you.
encouragement. And we look forward to hearing your audiobook by next year.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Megan.
And I think for us as well, what we'll maybe do is do you want to read that? Should I read that? We will read one last poem before we say our goodbyes, and this piece is actually something we read at the very beginning of Storytelling with Puck to introduce it. It wasn't written by any of us. It was written by the incredible Tara Thompson. So thank you all for joining, not just tonight, and for watching not just tonight, Storytelling with Puck 2023, but thank you for all of the contributions you made across the week, and thank you for listening and commenting on each other's posts, and most importantly, the whole purpose of this, thank you for connecting with each other on a deeper level. That is what Storytelling with Puck is all about, and I think it's working.
Yeah, so we look forward to hearing your stories the rest of the year, and we'll be back in 2024. So we will, as always, end with a story.
5 years ago, I saw something blossom, but I didn't dare to take part. I watched, or rather peeked from the sidelines, and patiently developed my craft. 88,000 words of a memoir later, I believe I've become unstuck. It's time to flex those fingers and get involved in Storytelling with Puck. Storytelling is as old as time. It's a way to get your readers to relate. A connection can be made and spirits raised. Your brand and values can be sealed in its fate. Use a story to argue a point or to explain a complex idea. To sell yourself or your company. It's a great way to talk about your career. As a reader only, you can join in, hear tales that will make you laugh, cry, or smile. For sure, you'll read more than a few stories that will make you reflect for a good while. As a writer, come bring your passion. Tell your stories. You've got this in the bag. Just remember, whatever you post, at the Storytelling with Puck